Captain Taiho Kang stood on the bridge of the UNS Indomitable and watched the stars. He had been in space for 15 years, and he never got tired of the view. His ship was exploring the far edge of human territory, looking for new planets and new resources. Earth was far behind them now, and 47 colonies spread across the galaxy needed supplies and protection. "Captain, we have something on sensors," said Lieutenant Hana Song. She was the ship's science officer, a brilliant woman who could read data faster than anyone Taiho had ever met. "It's big, really big." Taiho walked over to her station. On the screen, he saw a ship that made the Indomitable look like a toy. It was at least 5 times their size, covered in strange armor that seemed to shift colors like an insect's shell. "Try to hail them," he said. The response came immediately. The screen filled with the image of a creature that made Taiho's stomach turn. It looked like a giant praying mantis, but with 6 arms and eyes that glowed with an orange light. When it spoke, the computer translated the sounds into words. "Humans," the creature said. Its voice was cold and flat. "I am Supreme Commander of the Vrelith Empire. Your species has spread too far. You are like weeds in our garden. We give you one of your Earth years. Leave all colonies beyond your home system. Return to your small planet, or we will remove you." Taiho felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "We have never encountered your species before. We mean no harm. There is room in the galaxy for both our peoples." The Vrelith commander made a sound that might have been laughter. "We have ruled this region of space for 3,000 of your years. 14 species have challenged us. 14 species are now extinct. We do not share. We do not negotiate. You have 1 year." The transmission ended. The alien ship disappeared, moving faster than anything the Indomitable could track. Taiho immediately sent a message back to Earth. It would take weeks to reach the United Earth Council, and weeks more for their response to return. But he knew what he had to do. He changed course and headed to the nearest colony to warn them. On Earth, Admiral Dongyun Park read Taiho's report in his office. He was an old man now, with gray hair and scars from the colony wars 20 years ago. He had seen humanity fight itself and nearly destroy their own planet. He knew what war looked like. "They're serious," he told the council. "We need to prepare our military. Now." But the politicians wanted to talk. They wanted to send diplomats. They wanted to study the Vrelith and find common ground. Admiral Dongyun argued with them for 3 days, but they wouldn't listen. They said humanity had evolved beyond war. They said there was always a peaceful solution. 6 months passed. The diplomats sent messages to the Vrelith. They got no response. Humanity kept building their colonies, kept expanding. They thought maybe the Vrelith had been bluffing. Then the colony at New Seoul went silent. It had 50,000 people, including farmers, scientists, and families with children. Admiral Dong-hyun sent 3 ships to investigate. Captain Taiho was on one of those ships. When they arrived at New Seoul, they found nothing. The entire planet's surface had been turned to glass. The heat had been so intense that the oceans had boiled away. Not a single building remained. Not a single person survived. Hana Song scanned the planet from orbit. Her hands were shaking. "There's still radiation," she said quietly. "Whatever weapon they used, it was beyond anything we have. And they did this to send a message." 2 more colonies disappeared the same way in the next month. 60,000 more people dead, turned to ash and glass. The United Earth Council finally understood. The Vrelith were not bluffing. They were not interested in peace. They had given humanity a choice, and humanity's hesitation was seen as an answer. Admiral Dongyun called together every military officer in the fleet. The meeting was held on Earth's orbital station, in a room that could hold 500 people. He stood at the front and looked at all of them. "The Vrelith think we're weak," he said. "They think because we tried diplomacy, we're afraid to fight. They've destroyed 3 colonies and killed over 100,000 of our people. They think we'll run back to Earth and hide." He paused and looked around the room. "They don't know us. They don't know where we came from. Earth wasn't a peaceful planet. We fought world wars. We built atomic bombs. We nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times. But we survived. We learned. We grew stronger." The Admiral pulled up images of the dead colonies on the screen behind him. "Every person in this room knows someone who died on those worlds. Friends, family, people who just wanted to live in peace. The Vrelith took that from them. They took our future from them." His voice grew harder. "We have 6 months before their deadline. I say we don't wait. I say we show them what humanity does when you threaten our children. When you burn our homes. When you think we're too weak to fight back." The room erupted in agreement. Officers stood and shouted their support. Taiho stood as well. So did Hana. Everyone in that room knew what was coming. War was no longer a possibility. It was inevitable, and humanity was going to fight with everything they had. The Vrelith war fleet came 3 months early. They didn't wait for their deadline. 200 ships appeared at the edge of the Arcturus system, where humanity had built a trading station and 7 mining colonies. Commander Yuna Choi was in charge of the defense. She had 12 ships, 12 against 200. Her crew looked at her with fear in their eyes, waiting for orders to run. "We're not leaving," Yuna said. She was a small woman, barely over 5 feet tall, but everyone on the bridge stood straighter when she spoke. "Earth needs time to prepare. The colonies need time to evacuate. We hold this line." Her second officer, a young man named Kyung, stared at her. "Commander, we can't win this fight." "I know," Yuna said calmly. "But we can buy time. Send a message to all ships. We fight until there's nothing left to fight with." The Vrelith didn't even try to communicate. Their ships moved forward in a perfect formation, their weapons already charging. They had done this to 14 other species. They knew how this would end. But they didn't know Yuna. She had studied every battle in human history, from ancient naval warfare to the space skirmishes of the colony wars. She knew how to make the enemy pay for every inch of ground. Her ships scattered in 12 different directions. The Vrelith formation broke apart to chase them. Yuna led 5 enemy ships into the asteroid field surrounding the station. The Vrelith ships were bigger and stronger, but they were slower. She used the asteroids as cover, appearing and disappearing, firing when she had a shot. Her ship took damage. Her shields failed. Hull breaches killed 6 of her crew, but she destroyed 1 Vrelith ship, then another. The enemy commander must have been furious. He sent 20 more ships after her. Yuna smiled. 20 ships chasing her meant 20 ships not attacking the station, not attacking her other vessels. She kept running, kept fighting. Her ship was falling apart around her, but she didn't stop. The battle lasted 6 days. One by one, Yuna's ships were destroyed, but they took 30 Vrelith vessels with them. 30 ships destroyed by a force that should have been crushed in minutes. The Vrelith had never lost so many in a single engagement. On the 6th day, Yuna's ship was the last one flying. Her engines were dead. Her weapons were gone. Half her crew was dead. The Vrelith surrounded her, preparing to finish it. She opened a broadcast on all channels. "This is Commander Yuna Choi of the United Earth Navy. To anyone listening, remember this. Remember Arcturus. The Vrelith think they can scare us. They think we'll run. They're wrong." She looked around her broken bridge at her surviving crew. "We don't bow. We burn." Then she set her reactor to overload and aimed her dying ship at the nearest Vrelith vessel. The explosion took out 3 more enemy ships. By the time the Vrelith finished taking the Arcturus system, Earth had mobilized its entire military. News of Yuna's stand spread through every colony. Her final words became a battle cry. Soldiers painted "We burn" on their ships. Mothers whispered it to their children. Back on Earth, an engineer named Jinwoo Lee was working in a secret laboratory. He had been studying the wreckage of Vrelith ships that Yuna's fleet had damaged. The Vrelith used biomechanical technology, mixing living tissue with machines in ways humanity didn't fully understand. But Jinwu found something. The Vrelith ships had a weakness. Their organic components all shared the same quantum frequency. If you could generate the right kind of disruption, you could shut down their shields and weapons, maybe even kill the ship entirely. There was just one problem. The disruption generator had to be within 50 meters of the target to work. In space combat, that was basically touching. Any ship that got that close to a Vrelith vessel would be torn apart in seconds. Admiral Dong Yun looked at Jinwu's research. "How sure are you this will work?" 90%, Jinwu said. "Maybe 95. But sir, the pilot would have to—" "I know," the admiral said. "It's a suicide mission. We'll need volunteers." They expected maybe a few dozen people to volunteer. Instead, they got 10,000. Men and women who had lost families on the colonies, soldiers who had served with Yuna, civilians who had never fired a weapon but wanted to fight back. A fighter pilot named Minho Han was one of the first to sign up. His wife and 2 daughters had been on New Seoul when it burned. He had nothing left except rage and a desire for revenge. A weapons specialist named Sora Kim volunteered too. She had designed defensive systems for research stations. One of those stations had been destroyed by the Vrelith, along with everyone she worked with. She knew weapons. Now she wanted to use that knowledge to hurt the enemy. They trained for 2 months, learning to fly small, fast ships loaded with Jinwu's quantum disruptors, learning to get close to Vrelith vessels, learning to accept that they probably wouldn't come home. The Vrelith kept advancing. They destroyed another colony. Then, another. They sent messages to Earth demanding surrender. They said humanity had fought bravely but uselessly. They offered terms: return to Earth, dismantle the colonies, and the Vrelith would let humanity survive as a conquered species. Admiral Dong Yun sent back a single word: no. The Vrelith Supreme Commander couldn't understand. Every species eventually broke. Every species chose survival over pride. Why were these humans different? He would find out soon enough. Humanity was done defending, done retreating, done dying quietly. The counterattack was coming, and Minho Han was ready to show the Vrelith what it meant to make humanity angry. The United Earth Council held one final meeting. The politicians who had wanted peace were gone now, replaced by military officers and survivors from the destroyed colonies. They voted to dissolve the democratic government and create something new, the Emergency War Authority. Every factory on Earth stopped making civilian goods and started making weapons. Every shipyard worked day and night building warships. Schools became training centers. Parks became weapons testing grounds. Earth transformed into a war machine, and nobody complained. Everyone had lost someone to the Vrelith. General Seung-Oh was put in charge of military strategy. He was a hard man who had fought in the colony wars and understood that war wasn't about honor or fairness. War was about winning, no matter the cost. He created something he called the Doctrine of Ash. The idea was simple and terrible. If the Vrelith wanted human colonies, they would get nothing but ashes and radiation. Every colony was rigged with explosives. Every station was turned into a potential bomb. Civilian ships were loaded with nuclear weapons and programmed to crash into enemy vessels if the Vrelith attacked. Entire planets were prepared to self-destruct rather than be captured. "They want to conquer us," General Seung told his officers. "Let them try. Every world they take will cost them. Every victory will be poisoned. We'll make them bleed for every meter of space." Some people protested. They said this was madness, that humanity was destroying itself. General Seung didn't care. "Better ashes than slaves," he said. The Vrelith Supreme Commander heard about these preparations and dismissed them as primitive desperation. His species had conquered worlds for thousands of years. They understood efficiency and logic. These humans were emotional and wasteful. When the cost became too high, they would surrender like everyone else. He didn't understand that humanity had nearly destroyed itself multiple times in its own history. World wars, nuclear weapons, environmental collapse. Humans had seen the edge of extinction and stepped back at the last second. They knew how to survive when survival seemed impossible. The first major battle happened at Kepler 442, a planet with 2 million colonists. The Vrelith sent a fleet of 90 ships to take it. They expected an easy victory. Captain Jiwon Nam commanded the defense with 30 human ships. She was young for a captain, only 32, but she had trained with Jinwoo's quantum disruptors and knew how to use them. Minho Han was part of her strike force. So was Sora Kim, who had modified her fighter to carry 2 disruptors instead of 1. They knew the plan. Get close, disable the enemy shields, let the larger human ships finish them off. The Vrelith fleet came in with their usual perfect formation. They had won so many battles this way. Overwhelming force, superior technology, absolute confidence. Jiwon waited until they were committed to the attack. Then she gave the order. Strike teams, go! 50 small fighters launched from her ships. They were fast and hard to hit, darting between the massive Vrelith vessels like birds around giants. The Vrelith fired at them with automated defenses, destroying 20 fighters in the first minute. But 30 made it through. Minho's fighter took heavy damage, alarms screaming in his cockpit, but he got within 50 meters of a Vrelith command ship. He activated the disruptor. The effect was instant. The enemy ship's shields flickered and died. Its weapons went silent. It hung in space, helpless. Human destroyers fired missiles into the defenseless ship. It exploded in a ball of green fire. All across the battlefield, the same thing happened. Human fighters sacrificed themselves to get close. Disruptors shut down Vrelith systems. Bigger human ships moved in for the kill. It was brutal and desperate, but it worked. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the Vrelith fleet was destroyed. All 90 ships were gone. Humanity lost 23 vessels and over 100 fighters, but they had won. Minho survived. His fighter barely made it back to Jiwon's ship, trailing smoke and sparks. When they pulled him from the cockpit, he was laughing and crying at the same time. "We got them," he kept saying. "We actually got them." The Vrelith Supreme Commander received the news in silence. For the first time in 800 years, his species had lost a major battle. The humans hadn't just defended. They had destroyed his fleet completely. He sent more ships, bigger fleets, better commanders. But humanity was learning fast. Every battle taught them something new about Vrelith tactics. Every captured piece of technology was studied and copied. The war ground on for months. Both sides lost thousands of ships. Millions died on both sides. Entire star systems became graveyards of broken vessels and shattered worlds. The Vrelith controlled more territory. They had more ships. But humanity had something the Vrelith didn't understand. They had nothing to lose. Every human who fought knew they were fighting for survival, for revenge, for the right to exist. The Vrelith fought because that's what they had always done, because conquering was their nature. But they had never faced an enemy who refused to break, who kept coming back no matter how many times they were knocked down. After a year of brutal warfare, the Vrelith offered terms. They would stop attacking if humanity stopped expanding. They would allow humans to keep their current colonies. It was more than they had offered any other species. The War Authority met to discuss the offer. Some wanted to accept. The war was costing everything. Earth was running out of resources. Every family had lost someone. But Admiral Dong Yun stood up and asked one question. What happens in 50 years when they decide to attack again? What happens when they think we've grown weak? The room went silent. Everyone knew the answer. The Vrelith had destroyed 3 colonies before humanity even knew they existed. They had killed over 100,000 people as a warning. They would do it again if given the chance. The vote was unanimous. The answer was no. No negotiation, no surrender, no mercy. If the Vrelith wanted peace, they should have thought about that before they started burning human worlds. Now humanity would show them what real war looked like. Dr. Hannah Song had been studying Vrelith biology for 2 years. She had dissected their dead, examined their genetic code, learned how their biomechanical bodies worked. She understood them better than any human alive, and that knowledge led her to create something terrible. She called Admiral Dong Yun to her laboratory late one night. He came alone, as she requested. When he saw what was on her computer screen, his face went pale. "It's a virus," Hannah said quietly. Her voice was tired. She hadn't slept in days. "It targets their specific DNA structure. Once it infects a Vrelith, it spreads through their biomechanical systems. It would kill them in about 48 hours. Painfully." The Admiral stared at the screen. "How does it spread?" "Airborne. Waterborne. Contact. Once it's released on a Vrelith world, it would spread everywhere. There's no cure. I made sure of that." She looked at him with hollow eyes. "It would kill every Vrelith on the planet within a month. Every single one." "You're talking about genocide," Admiral Dongyun said. "Yes." Hannah's hands were shaking. "I know what this is. I know what it makes us. But they killed my brother on New Sol. They killed my parents on Arcturus. They've killed millions of us, and they won't stop." She met his eyes. "Will it end the war?" The Admiral was quiet for a long time. Finally, he asked the only question that mattered. "Will it work?" "Yes," Hannah said. "It will work." 2 weeks later, the War Authority voted. The debate lasted for hours. Some officers argued it was too far, that humanity would become monsters. Others said the Vrelith had started this war, had offered no mercy, and deserved none in return. In the end, the vote was close. But it passed. The virus would be used. Admiral Taiho Kang, who had first encountered the Vrelith 3 years ago, was given command of the operation. His hair had gone gray during the war. He had lost most of his original crew, but he was still fighting. He assembled the largest human fleet ever created, 300 ships, including carriers, destroyers, and assault vessels. They called it Striker Fleet, and its target was Vrelith Prime, the home world of the enemy. Vrelith Prime had 12 billion inhabitants. It was the heart of their empire, protected by defensive stations and hundreds of warships. Getting to the planet would require fighting through 3 defensive lines. Most of the human fleet would die just trying to reach orbit. Taiho knew this. Everyone in the fleet knew this. They went anyway. Minho Han was still flying fighters. He had survived 12 major battles, more than anyone expected. He volunteered for the Vrelith Prime mission without hesitation. So did Sora Kim, now commanding a destroyer of her own. The fleet jumped into Vrelith space and began the attack. The first defensive line was waiting for them. Vrelith ships opened fire immediately. The battle was chaos from the first second. Human ships died by the dozens, but they kept pushing forward. Taiho's strategy was brutal and simple. Accept the losses and keep moving. Nothing mattered except reaching the planet. The second defensive line was worse. The Vrelith had learned from earlier battles and adapted their tactics. They focused fire on human command ships, trying to break the fleet's coordination. Sora's destroyer took a direct hit. Her ship split in half. She managed to get her crew to escape pods before the reactor exploded. She watched from a rescue ship as they continued toward the planet. Minho's squadron was down to 3 fighters. He led them in a desperate charge against a Vrelith battleship, using the last of their disruptors. The battleship's shields failed, and human missiles finished it. But Minho's fighter was hit by debris. He ejected just seconds before his ship exploded. Half the human fleet was destroyed by the time they reached Vrelith Prime's orbit. 150 ships lost, tens of thousands dead. but they made it. Taiho stood on his damaged bridge and opened a communication channel to the Vrelith home world. He sent one message in their language, making sure every Vrelith on the planet could hear it. You gave us 1 year to surrender. We give you 1 hour to remember why you should have left us alone. Then he launched the virus. The delivery system was simple. Missiles loaded with the genetic weapon. They struck all over the planet, in cities and oceans and wilderness. The Vrelith planetary shield stopped the missiles themselves, but microscopic particles were released in the upper atmosphere. That was enough. The Vrelith leadership didn't evacuate. They believed their shields were perfect. They believed their medicine could cure any disease. They had never faced something like this. The virus spread faster than anyone expected. Within 3 days, Vrelith across the planet were getting sick. Within a week, millions were dead. The Vrelith doctors tried everything. Nothing worked. The human fleet stayed in orbit, fighting off Vrelith ships that tried to escape. Taiho had his orders. Nothing leaves the planet. No survivors. No one to spread the word of what weapon humanity had used. Watching from his ship, Taiho felt sick. He could see the cities below, could imagine the suffering. The Vrelith were dying by the millions. Men, women, children if they had such things. All of them dying because of what humanity had created. Admiral Dongyun sent a private message to Taiho. Having doubts? Yes, Taiho replied honestly. This is genocide. This is what monsters do. They made us into monsters, Dongyun said. They burned our worlds, killed our families, refused to negotiate. What choice did they leave us? Taiho had no answer. He just watched as Vrelith Prime died. 4 weeks after the virus was released, scans showed no life signs on the planet. 12 billion Vrelith dead. Their beautiful cities were full of corpses. Their technology was useless. Their empire's heart had stopped beating. The human fleet left Vrelith Prime behind and headed to the next target. There were other Vrelith worlds, other colonies, other populations. And humanity was just getting started. The Vrelith Empire fell apart faster than anyone expected. When news of their homeworld's destruction spread, panic followed. Colony governors tried to organize defenses. Military commanders argued about strategy. Civilians tried to flee to unknown space. Some Vrelith colonies sent desperate messages to humanity. They offered surrender. They offered their technology, their resources, their entire worlds. They begged for mercy. They said they never wanted the war. They said they were just following orders from their leaders. The War Authority received these messages in their headquarters on Earth. General Seung-Oh, now the highest military commander after Admiral Dong-hyun, died in a battle near Vrelith space, read every single one. Then he gave his response. One word sent to every human fleet, every ship, every soldier. The word was, continue. No mercy, no prisoners, no negotiations. The Vrelith species would be completely removed from existence. Some human officers protested. Captain Jiwon Nam sent a message directly to General Sung. Sir, they're offering surrender. Some of these colonies had nothing to do with the attack on our worlds. There are civilians, maybe even children. General Sung's response was ice cold. They gave us no mercy when they burned New Seoul, when they killed Commander Yuna, when they demanded we abandon our colonies or die. We offered them peace before this war started. They chose violence. Now they get to see where that choice leads. The human fleets moved from system to system. The Vrelith military tried to fight back at first, but they were disorganized and desperate. Most of their best ships had died defending their home world. What remained couldn't stand against humanity's war machine. At each Vrelith colony, the humans followed the same procedure. Destroy the military ships, surround the planet, then release the virus. Sometimes the Vrelith tried to evacuate. Human fighters shot down the escape ships. Nobody left alive. Sora Kim had survived the Vrelith Prime battle and been given command of a new ship. She led the attack on Vrelith Station Omega, one of the last major enemy strongholds. The station held 300,000 Vrelith, mostly refugees from destroyed colonies. As her fleet surrounded the station, a young officer on her bridge spoke up. Her name was Yunji Bei, and she had joined the military after the war started. She was barely 20 years old. "Commander Kim," Yunji said quietly, "these are refugees. They're running away, not fighting. What does this make us if we kill them all?" Sora looked at the young officer. She thought about her own research station, destroyed years ago, about her friends who died there, about the 3 years of brutal war that had killed millions on both sides. "It makes us alive," Sora said. "It makes us the species that survived. Launch the virus." Yunji's hands shook as she followed the order. The station tried to run, but it was too slow. The virus missiles struck their target. Within weeks, the station was silent and dead. The war lasted 18 months after Vrelith Prime fell. One by one, every Vrelith colony was found and destroyed. Some tried to hide in deep space. Human scout ships hunted them down. Some tried to surrender and assimilate with other species. Those species, terrified of human anger, handed them over. Minho Han, who had survived the entire war, led the final mission. A small Vrelith colony ship with maybe 10,000 survivors had been found hiding in an asteroid field. They had no weapons, no shields, just families trying to survive. His squadron surrounded them. The Vrelith ship broadcast a message. "Please, we surrender. We have children aboard. Please." Minho thought about his own children, dead on New Sol. He thought about his wife. He thought about the 3 years he had spent killing Vrelith, watching his friends die, becoming a person he didn't recognize anymore. He gave the order to fire. The colony ship was destroyed in seconds. When he returned to his carrier, Minho went to his quarters and cried for the first time since the war began. Not for the Vrelith, for himself, for what he had become. 10 years after the war ended, Dr. Hana Song wrote the final report. She was old now, her hair white, her hands stiff with arthritis. She had spent the last decade documenting everything, every battle, every world destroyed, every Vrelith killed. The conclusion of her report was simple and terrible. The Vrelith species was extinct. Every member of their race was dead. 23 star systems that they once controlled were empty now, filled with ghost worlds and abandoned cities. An entire civilization, thousands of years old, was gone. Humanity had done what the Vrelith claimed they had done to 14 other species, but humanity had done it faster, more efficiently, more completely. The galaxy reacted with horror. 57 different alien species sent representatives to Earth, not to threaten, not to demand justice. They came to promise peace, to swear neutrality, to offer friendship and trade and anything else humanity wanted. They were terrified. Every species in the galaxy now knew what humans were capable of when pushed too far. Admiral Taiho Kang, retired now and living on Earth, was asked to write a message to the galaxy, something to explain humanity's position, to let other species know where they stood. He spent weeks writing it. The final message was carved on a monument built at the edge of human space. The monument was made from pieces of Vrelith ships, melted down and reformed. It became the most visited site in the galaxy. The message read, "Humanity came to the stars seeking friends and neighbors. We found enemies who demanded our surrender or death. We gave them chances to negotiate. They gave us war. They killed our families. They burned our worlds. They thought we would break. They were wrong. Let this stand as a reminder to all species. Humanity does not seek conflict, but we will end it. Absolutely. Completely. Without mercy. We hope never to build another monument like this one. But if we must, we will." Below the message was a simple list. Every human colony destroyed by the Vrelith. every human who died in the war, 3,400,000 names, a reminder of what the war cost, and at the very bottom, one final line. We remember, we survive, we endure. 50 years later, humanity had expanded to 100 star systems. They traded peacefully with dozens of species. They helped less advanced civilizations develop. They became known as tough but fair neighbors. But every species that met humanity saw that monument. They read those words. They understood the warning. The Vrelith had been the last species to challenge humanity with force. They had been powerful, ancient, and confident in their superiority. Now they were dust and memories. A cautionary tale told across the galaxy. The species that pushed humanity too far and discovered that humans, when threatened with extinction, would choose to survive at any cost, even if that cost was their own humanity.